When the people of Ogbunike saw her that morning, standing in the middle of the market square, her once glowing skin now covered in black soot, her hair tangled like a bird's nest, and her beautiful yellow dress stained with mud and cow dung, everyone froze. The dirty Slay Queen was back. Women dropped their baskets of tomatoes, men stopped pounding yam, and even the goats stopped chewing. The proudest and cleanest girl in the whole village, Amara the Slay Queen, was now smelling like a refuse pit. Her fine slippers were gone, and she was barefoot. Children giggled and whispered, "Look! The dirty Slay Queen." But Amara didn't move. She just stood there, her eyes wide and empty, trembling from head to toe. And then, she slowly opened her mouth as if to speak, but no words came out, only a croaky sound like a frog. Then she pointed behind her, towards the forest path that led to the cursed river of Nzu-Obi. The crowd gasped. No one ever went near that river at night. Everyone knew it was where the spirits of the wrong came to wash their anger. But Amara had gone there. Alone. Before anyone could ask what had happened, a cold wind blew through the market, tossing baskets and tearing wrappers off lines. The elders shouted for everyone to run. And then, from the forest, came a loud cry, half human, half animal. That was when Amara fell to her knees and screamed. The crowd scattered. And that was how the story of the dirty Slay Queen truly began. Amara wasn't always dirty. In fact, she was the cleanest girl in Ogbunike village. Her skin always shone like fresh palm oil, and her clothes were always brighter than the midday sun. She had mirrors in her hut, something no other girl in the village had. Every morning, she would look into her mirror, smile at herself, and say, "There can never be another Amara." Her mother, Mama Ejike, sold palm wine at the market, and her father was a well-known hunter. They were not poor, but they were not rich either. Yet Amara behaved as if she was a queen. She called herself the Slay Queen of Ogbunike, and soon everyone else started calling her that too, some out of admiration, others out of annoyance. When the girls went to fetch water, Amara refused to carry a calabash. She said her hands were too soft for heavy work. She would rather spend that time painting her nails with red dye from the uli tree. When the women weeded the village square before festivals, she sat under the mango tree fanning herself and giving fashion advice. Ngozi, that wrapper does not fit your waist. You look like a yam tied in cloth, she would say, and the other girls would laugh. Amara always found a way to make herself the center of attention. She would never walk quietly through the market. No, she had to swing her hips and snap her fingers to the rhythm of the talking drums, pretending the drummers were playing only for her. But as proud as she was, Amara was beautiful. Her eyes sparkled like river water, her teeth were white like coconut flesh, and her laughter was sweet like ripe pawpaw. Suitors came from far and near, but she rejected them all. "I cannot marry a man who wears the same wrapper 2 days in a row," she would say. "Or one whose sandals are made from old tires. No. My husband must smell like foreign perfume." Even the chief's son, Obiora, who came with gift of gold and a fat goat, was turned down. "Too short," Amara said, waving him off. "My man must look like a prince, not a palm wine tapper." The rejection spread like fire. Soon, every man began to fear asking her hand. But Amara didn't care. She said she was made for greater things, that one day, she would go to the city and live like a real queen. But trouble began the day she met the stranger. It was during the New Yam festival. The whole village gathered in the square to dance and eat roasted corn. Amara arrived late, as usual, her dress shining with golden beads. Everyone turned to look at her, as if the moon had entered the market. Then, a man no one had ever seen before appeared. He was tall, his skin dark as midnight, and his eyes glowed faintly like the coals in a blacksmith's fire. He wore white clothes that did not have a single speck of dust, even though he had walked on the same red earth as everyone else. He bowed slightly to Amara and smiled. You shine brighter than the moon, he said. His voice was deep and soft. Amara giggled and replied, and you talk sweeter than honey. No one knew where the stranger came from. He did not eat anything during the festival. He only drank palm wine and kept staring at Amara as though he was measuring her soul. That night, Amara dreamed of him. She saw him standing by a river, holding a golden mirror. If you want to see your true beauty, he told her, meet me by the Nzu-Obi River tomorrow night. When she woke up, her heart was beating fast. She should have told her mother. She should have gone to the village priest. But instead, she smiled. My true beauty, she whispered. Finally, someone who understands me. So the next night, when the moon was high and the crickets sang loudly, Amara sneaked out of her hut, wearing her finest wrapper and beads. She sprayed her last drop of perfume and carried a small lantern. As she walked towards the forest path, the air grew colder. The frogs stopped croaking. Even the wind seemed to hold its breath. But Amara kept walking. When she reached the riverbank, she saw him, the stranger from her dream. He was standing there, holding the golden mirror, just as he had promised. Welcome, Slay Queen of Ogbunike, he said. Come, see what no one has ever seen. Amara smiled proudly and stepped closer. The river shimmered behind him, and the moonlight made everything look magical. She looked into the mirror, and gasped. Inside the mirror, she saw herself dressed in jewels, sitting on a throne, surrounded by servants fanning her with eagle feathers. She was glowing, so beautiful that even the stars seemed to bow before her reflection. Is that me? She whispered. Yes, the stranger said. That is your true self, the queen you were meant to be. But beauty has a price. A price? She asked, her voice trembling slightly. Yes, he said, smiling wider. A queen must first wash away her pride. You must bathe in the Nzu-Obi River tonight. Then, your true beauty will be revealed to the world. Amara hesitated. Everyone in Ogbunike knew that the Nzu-Obi River was cursed. The elders warned never to touch its waters after sunset. But the mirror's reflection was too dazzling. She wanted that beauty. She wanted the world to see her shine. So, she placed the mirror on a stone and stepped into the river. The water was icy cold. She gasped, but the stranger nodded, urging her to go deeper. When the water reached her waist, she felt something brush against her legs. She screamed, but the stranger only laughed, a dark, echoing laugh that made the trees tremble. Then, before she could run, the river began to bubble. The water turned black. Hands, cold, slimy hands, rose from the surface and grabbed her. She struggled, but they pulled her under. The last thing she saw was the golden mirror sinking beside her, its glow fading into darkness. That was 2 nights before she appeared in the market, covered in mud and filth, her eyes haunted, her voice gone. No one knew what truly happened in the river that night. Some said she met the spirit of vanity itself. Others believed she was cursed by the ancestors for her pride. But one thing was certain, the Slay Queen of Ogbunike was no longer the same. That evening, after the market scattered, the elders gathered at the chief's hut. They lit a sacred fire and sent for the village priest, Dibia Udo. When he arrived, he looked into Amara's eyes and frowned. This girl has looked into the mirror of the spirits, he said gravely. And something looked back. The people gasped. What do we do, Dibia? The chief asked. The old man shook his head. There is only one way to cleanse her. But it must be done before the next full moon, or she will belong to them forever. Belong to who? Mama Ejai cried, clutching her daughter's arm. The Dibia turned slowly toward the forest. The spirits of the Nzu-Obi River. A sudden thunder cracked in the sky, though there was no cloud in sight. The fire flickered and went out. Then, from somewhere deep in the forest, came the same eerie cry they had heard in the market that morning, louder this time, closer. The chief's wife screamed and ran inside. And Amara, she turned her head slowly toward the sound and whispered a name that no one had ever heard before. The dibia gasped. His staff fell to the ground. By the gods, he said, his voice trembling. That name should not be spoken by mortal tongues. The elders looked at him, terrified. What does it mean? The chief asked. But before the dibia could answer, the ground beneath them shook violently, and Amara's eyes began to glow faintly, like coals in a blacksmith's fire. The ground trembled under everyone's feet. Clay pots rolled off shelves and cracked open, spilling palm wine onto the chief's floor. Women screamed and ran out of the hut, clutching their wrappers. Chickens flapped into the air, scattering feathers. The elders tried to stand firm, but even they looked frightened. Amara's eyes glowed brighter, red now, not the gentle brown they once were. Her lips moved, but no sound came. Then she lifted her hand and pointed toward the forest again. The Nzu-Obi River calls her, Dibia Udo said, backing away slowly. His beads rattled on his neck. She has been marked. The spirits want her back. Mama Ejike fell to her knees and began to cry. Please, save my daughter, she begged. She was only vain. She did not mean to offend the spirits. But the dibia shook his head sadly. Once you look into the mirror of the Nzu-Obi, the spirits see your soul. And if they like what they see, they never let go. The wind outside rose again, howling through the thatched roof. It sounded like voices whispering Amara's name, calling her. Amara. Amara. The girl suddenly jerked forward, her body stiff as a log, then collapsed to the ground. Everyone gasped. Mama Ejike rushed to her side, shaking her. Amara. Amara. But her daughter didn't answer. Her eyes were wide open, staring at nothing. The dibia bent down, pressed a hand to her forehead, and whispered an incantation. The fire he lit earlier suddenly flared up, burning blue. He pulled his hand back quickly, hissing in pain. Hot. She burns like the underworld. What do we do, Dibia? The chief cried. We must take her to the sacred grove before sunrise, he said. If the first light meets her here, the spirits will take her completely. Without wasting time, the men of the village lifted Amara carefully onto a mat. They carried her through the dark forest path while the dibia led the way, shaking his staff and chanting words no one else understood. The moon hid behind clouds, and the forest seemed to come alive with whispers and rustling. Mama Ejike followed behind them, clutching her wrapper and praying under her breath. When they reached the grove, a small clearing surrounded by ancient Iroko trees, the dibia stopped. He drew a circle on the ground with white chalk and placed Amara in the center. Then he set 4 calabashes around her, one filled with water, one with palm oil, one with salt, and one with charcoal. These are the elements of purity, he said. If her soul is still clean enough to return, they will balance. But if the darkness has claimed her. He did not finish his sentence. He raised his staff and began to chant. The wind slowed. The leaves stopped moving. Even the insects went silent. Then, a deep voice, not human, spoke from within Amara. Leave us alone. The villagers froze. The voice was thick and cold, echoing like it came from a cave. Dibia Udo's beads rattled. Spirit of the river. Why have you taken her? She came to us, the voice said. She saw what mortals should not see. Her beauty belongs to the mirror now. No, Mama Ejike screamed, falling to the ground. Take me instead. Leave my child. The voice laughed, a terrible, hollow laugh that made even the strongest men step back. A mother's love cannot buy what pride has sold. The ground cracked beneath Amara's body. Blue light poured out from the cracks, swirling like smoke. Her body began to rise slowly, her hair floating in the air as though underwater. Dibia Udo shouted, hold her down. 2 men ran forward and grabbed her arms, but she was strong, too strong. She flung them away like leaves in the wind. Her voice changed, blending with the spirits. You cannot stop what has begun. The Dibia dipped his fingers into the calabash of salt and flung it into the air, shouting the name of Choku, the creator. The wind exploded around them, blowing out their torches. For a moment, everything went dark. Then the blue light vanished. Amara fell to the ground, unconscious. When they lit the torches again, the calabashes were broken. The circle of chalk was gone. Dibia Udo looked weak, his breathing heavy. The spirits have left her, for now, he said. But they will return. We must prepare before the next full moon. The villagers carried Amara back home. This time, she didn't open her eyes. She just lay still, breathing softly, as if sleeping. Days passed. The market women whispered about her. Some said she was cursed forever. Others said she had brought the wrath of the river upon the village. Children avoided her hut. Even the goats refused to graze near it. But Mama Ejak stayed by her daughter's side, wiping her face with a wet cloth every morning, praying to the gods for mercy. One evening, as the sun was setting, Amara's eyes fluttered open. She looked around slowly and whispered, "Mama." Mama Ejak gasped with joy and hugged her. "My daughter. You're awake." Amara blinked. Her eyes looked normal again, brown, gentle, human. "What happened?" she asked weakly. Mama Ejak hesitated. "You fell sick, my child. But you're safe now." Amara frowned, trying to remember. Then her eyes widened suddenly. "The river," she whispered. "The man with the mirror, he's still there." Mama Ejak froze. "Don't speak of him," she said sharply. "He is not of this world." Amara sat up slowly. "Mama, I saw something, before I came back. I was in a dark place. There were faces in the water, calling me. They said they were waiting." Mama Ejak crossed herself with trembling hands. "Hush. Forget them." But Amara couldn't forget. That night, when her mother fell asleep, she slipped quietly out of the hut. The moon was bright, and the forest path shimmered like silver. She felt drawn again, pulled by something she couldn't resist. As she reached the edge of the forest, she heard a soft whisper. "Amara." She froze. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the rustling of leaves. She took a step forward, and then another. Her feet moved on their own. The air grew colder. The smell of the river filled her nose. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from behind the trees. It was the stranger, the man from the festival, wearing the same spotless white clothes. His eyes glowed faintly again. "Did you think you could escape me?" he said softly. Amara gasped and stumbled back. "You tricked me. You made me bathe in that cursed river." He smiled slowly. "I showed you your true self. You just didn't like what you saw." "I saw beauty," she cried. "Exactly," he said. "And beauty is never free." He lifted the golden mirror again. "Look once more, and you will understand." Amara shook her head, but her body wouldn't obey. Her eyes locked on the mirror. This time, she didn't see herself as a queen. She saw herself, covered in mud, hair tangled, eyes dark and hollow. Around her were the faces she saw in the water, whispering, "Join us, Slay Queen, join us." Amara screamed and turned to run, but the stranger's hand shot out and grabbed her arm. His touch burned like fire. "You belong to us now," he hissed. "No," she shouted. "I am not yours." She reached down and grabbed a handful of sand, throwing it into his face. For a moment, he stumbled back, and his image flickered, like smoke in the wind. Amara ran as fast as she could, her heart pounding. Branches tore at her dress, roots scratched her feet. She didn't stop until she saw the lights of the village. But as she burst into the clearing, panting and terrified, she saw something that made her freeze. The whole village was awake, standing outside, staring at her hut. Flames were rising from it, bright, hungry flames. Mama Ejike was nowhere to be seen. Amara dropped to her knees, screaming, "Mama!" The villagers turned to her, their faces filled with fear. "Amara," one of them said quietly, "your mother went into the hut to look for you. She never came out." Amara's scream tore through the night. The dibia arrived, out of breath, and grabbed her shoulders. "The spirits are angry," he said. "You have brought fire into your own blood." The flames roared higher, lighting up the sky. The villagers tried to fetch water, but the fire didn't behave like ordinary fire. It danced and twisted, glowing blue at the edges, as if it were alive. Then, through the crackling flames, a figure appeared in the doorway. It was Mama Ejike, her eyes glowing faintly, her lips curved into a strange smile. "Amara," she said in a soft, echoing voice. "Come back to the river with me." The crowd screamed and fell back. Amara stared in horror, trembling. "Mama!" But her mother only raised her hand, beckoning. The fire around her grew brighter, swirling like a whirlpool. Dibia Udo shouted, "Do not move. That is not your mother anymore." Amara's tears streamed down her face. "She's calling me." The dibia raised his staff and began to chant again, his voice rising above the roar of the flames. But before he could finish the incantation, a sudden gust of wind blew through the village, knocking everyone off their feet. The fire exploded upward, and a blue wave of light shot into the sky. When the light faded, the hut was gone. So was Mama Ejike. And Amara was standing alone in the ashes, holding the golden mirror. The villagers whispered in terror. Dibia Udo's face turned pale. "The mirror," he said. "She has accepted it." Amara looked down at the mirror in her hands, her reflection flickering between beauty and filth. Then, without warning, she smiled. But it wasn't her smile. It was his. The night was too quiet. The villagers stood frozen, their faces pale in the glow of the dying embers. The smell of burnt thatch and palm oil filled the air. The only sound was the faint crackling of the ashes, and Amara's slow, strange breathing. She stood in the center of what used to be her home, clutching the golden mirror tightly to her chest. Her eyes flickered, one moment soft and brown, the next glowing like the river at midnight. "Amara," Dibia Udo said carefully, stepping closer. "Child of Ogbunike, put the mirror down." But Amara didn't answer. She tilted her head slightly, as if listening to something only she could hear. "The river is calling again," she whispered. The old dibia frowned. "No, child. That voice you hear is not your mother's. It is the spirit of vanity itself. You must fight it." Amara looked up slowly. Her face was calm, too calm. "Why should I fight beauty?" she asked softly. "It's what everyone wants. Everyone admired me once, but now they stare in fear. Yet still, they cannot look away." A cold wind swept through the crowd, and the villagers shivered. One woman dropped her water pot, and it shattered on the ground. The dibia struck his staff against the earth. "You are not speaking with your own tongue, Amara. Return what you took from the river." Amara smiled faintly. "Return it. I am it." Her voice echoed like two voices layered over each other, hers and something else, darker and older. Then, she lifted the mirror and looked into it. For a moment, the mirror flashed bright gold, and the reflection of Ogbunike village appeared inside it, but not as it truly was. In the mirror, the huts were broken, the trees dead, the people walking around covered in mud. The villagers gasped and stepped back. "What is this?" someone shouted. Dibia Udo's voice trembled. "The mirror of Nzu-Obi shows not what is, But what will be if the curse is not broken? Amara lowered the mirror slowly. Her eyes flickered again. Then maybe it is time the world saw the truth of their own ugliness. Before the Dibia could speak, she raised the mirror toward the crowd. A wave of golden light shot out, sweeping over them. People screamed and fell to their knees. When the light faded, every villager was covered in dirt and filth, mud clinging to their skin and clothes, as if they had rolled in the refuse pit. The proud women who once mocked others for smelling of smoke were now unrecognizable. The men who once called Amara proud now looked ashamed to meet her gaze. "Now you understand," Amara said, her voice soft but cold. "No one is truly clean. You only hide your dirt better than others." The crowd began to cry. Mothers clutched their children. The chief himself fell to his knees. But Dibia Udo stood tall. "You have seen enough, Amara. This is not who you are." Amara turned to him slowly. "You still do not understand, old man. I saw the river. I saw what beauty really means. It is not in the skin, it is in power. And now, the river has given that power to me." The Dibia raised his staff again, his voice thundering with anger. "Then I must take it back." He struck the ground 3 times, and a circle of fire appeared around him. He began chanting words older than the village itself. The wind howled, the trees shook, and the ground split slightly beneath Amara's feet. The mirror flickered, and the golden glow dimmed. Amara groaned, clutching her head. "Stop it," she screamed. But the Dibia didn't stop. He shouted louder, calling on the name of Ola, the earth goddess, and Choku, the creator of all things. Let the curse return to where it came from. The ground rumbled again. The golden mirror began to crack. A scream echoed from inside it, a mixture of Amara's voice and another, deeper one. "No!" Amara shouted, falling to her knees. "You don't understand. If you break it, she dies too." "Who?" the Dibia shouted. "My mother." The Dibia froze. "Your mother?" Amara nodded weakly, tears running down her face. "When the house burned, the mirror took her. She's inside. If you destroy it, she will be gone forever." The Dibia hesitated. The villagers looked at each other in horror. "Then what must we do?" he asked softly. Amara looked up at him, her face twisted with pain. "The mirror must be cleansed, in the same river that cursed it." The Dibia frowned. "You mean, the Nzu-Obi River?" She nodded. "Only its waters can release her, and me." The crowd murmured in fear. No one had ever gone near that river since the night Amara disappeared. The Dibia sighed deeply. "Then we must go. Before the next dawn." He turned to the villagers. "Gather what we need, palm oil, white chalk, and the blood of a goat. We will follow her to the river." The villagers obeyed, though their hands trembled. They prepared quickly, for none wanted to face the river after dark. But when they turned to Amara, she was already walking ahead, alone, carrying the cracked golden mirror against her chest. The path to the river was long and silent. The air grew thick, and the trees seemed to lean inward as if watching them. Strange whispers drifted through the leaves. When they finally reached the riverbank, the moon was high above them. The water glowed faintly blue, rippling even though there was no wind. Amara stepped forward. "This is where it began," she said softly. The Dibia nodded and handed her a calabash of palm oil. "Anoint the mirror," he said. "Then place it in the water. Whatever happens, do not let go until the river turns clear." Amara nodded. Her hands shook as she poured the oil over the mirror's surface. Then, she stepped into the water. It was cold, freezing, but she didn't stop. The villagers watched, holding their breath. When the water reached her waist, she looked back once more. "If I don't come out, tell them I am sorry," she whispered. Then she plunged the mirror into the river. The water erupted in a flash of light. Waves crashed against the shore, though there was no wind. The villagers stumbled back. The dibia raised his staff to shield his eyes. From the river rose 1,000 faces, ghostly and pale, whispering, crying, reaching out with wet, transparent hands. Among them was Mama Ejike. Amara, her mother said softly. You came back for me. Tears rolled down Amara's cheeks. I couldn't leave you, Mama. The spirits began to swirl around them, chanting in a low, haunting tone. The river turned darker, pulling Amara deeper. Let her go, the dibia shouted, striking his staff on the ground. But the river only roared louder. Amara clung to the mirror, struggling to keep her head above the water. Mama, you have to go. Leave me. No, her mother cried. Not without you. The mirror glowed brighter and brighter until it shattered with a thunderous crack. The river exploded upward in a column of light so bright that the villagers covered their faces. Then everything went silent. The water became still, clear and calm. The blue glow was gone. When they dared to open their eyes, the dibia saw only one figure standing in the shallow water, Amara. But she was different. Her skin no longer shone. Her hair was plain and her eyes soft, human again. There was no pride, no glow, no curse, just peace. She walked out of the river slowly, dripping wet, and fell to her knees on the bank. Where is the mirror? The dibia asked. She looked up at him and smiled faintly. Gone. And with it, the spirits.